Greetings, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Reading Epic Threads. I'm your host, Patrick Gunnels, joining you from Spring, Texas. That's right. This September 30th, 2024 at 7:23 a.m. Central Daylight Time. I'm recording in advance because right after I get done with this amazing piece from Rootbitch, I'm going to be going to the old house, packing up the remaining equipment and moving everything out. My time there has come to a close. This has been a wildly expensive move, guys, while maintaining the business. So if you could all please do me a favor and go to tulipblooms.shop. That's right, tulipblooms.shop. It is the best skincare line the world has ever known, consisting of some amazing virgin organic food grade plant oils, apricot kernel oil being one of them, containing vitamin B17. Free shipping all the way through November 2nd. Only applies to U.S. orders, but free shipping for everything. Use promo code Shapiro. You get 10% off, and now another 5% off if you subscribe to our skincare lines. So go to tulipblooms.shop. That's tulipblooms.shop. Elevate your radiance with nature's finest. tulipblooms.shop. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today's piece, AI Part 2. From Rootbitch, CNBC. OpenAI sees roughly $5 billion loss this year on $3.7 billion in revenue. OpenAI, the creator of ChatGPT, expects about $5 billion in losses on $3.7 billion of revenue this year. CNBC has confirmed the company generated $300 million in revenue last month, up 1,700% since the beginning of last year, and expects to bring in $11.6 billion in sales next year, according to a person close to OpenAI who asked not to be named because the numbers are confidential. Yeah, good job, shithead. OpenAI, which is backed by Microsoft, is currently pursuing a funding round that would value the company at more than $150 billion. People familiar with the matter have told CNBC. Thrive Capital is leading the round and plans to invest $1 billion, with Tiger Capital planning to join as well. OpenAI CFO Sarah Frier told investors in an email Thursday that the funding round is oversubscribed and will close by next week. Her note followed a number of key departures, most notably technology chief Mira Murati, who announced the previous day that she was leaving OpenAI after 6.5 years. Also this week, news surfaced that OpenAI's board is considering plans to restructure the firm to a for-profit business. The company will retain its nonprofit segment as a separate entity. A person familiar with the matter told CNBC. From Time. Why Elon Musk is suing OpenAI and Sam Altman. The fallout from the OpenAI board's failed attempt to fire CEO Sam Altman last November took an unexpected turn on Thursday in events that could have significant bearing on the future of the company and the wider world of artificial intelligence. Elon Musk filed a lawsuit against OpenAI in a San Francisco court, alleging that Altman and co-founder Greg Brockman have violated OpenAI's founding mission to develop AI safely and for the benefit of humanity. The billionaire owner of SpaceX and X, formerly Twitter, co-founded OpenAI alongside Altman and Brockman back in 2015, but stepped away from the company in 2018. Musk launched his own AI company, xAI, last summer. Musk disagreed with Altman and Brockman's plan to turn OpenAI from a nonprofit to a for-profit company, and before stepping down, reportedly mounted an unsuccessful bid to install himself as CEO. Musk is suing Altman, Brockman, and several of OpenAI's business entities for breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, and unfair business practices, seeking unspecified damages above $105,000. First, the crucial context: as part of their partnership agreement, Microsoft has exclusive commercial rights to OpenAI's intellectual property, including the algorithms behind ChatGPT and its successor, GPT-4. But there is a notable caveat. These commercial rights only apply to pre-AGI technology. and it is OpenAI's board that has the right to determine when AGI, artificial general intelligence, or an AI system that can perform economically valuable tasks similar to a human has been reached. In November 2023, the OpenAI board fired Altman. During the 5 days that followed, Microsoft and OpenAI employees applied significant pressure to the board to reverse that decision, ultimately successfully. Altman returned as CEO, and all but one of the board's members who had voted to oust Altman were themselves removed. Altman and Brockman were also removed from the board. Microsoft, which did not previously have a seat on the board, was given an observer position with no voting power. These events, Musk's lawsuit alleges, amounted to a coup that had the effect of ensuring the new OpenAI board, which the suit argues were, quote, handpicked by Mr. Altman and Microsoft, would be unlikely to declare that AGI had been reached, thus allowing Microsoft to continue profiting from the technology. From courthousenews.com, general allegations, Musk v. Altman, OpenAI complaint. Overview of the case. A, the risk of artificial general intelligence. 15. Over the course of the 20th century, the United States gradually shifted from a primarily human labor-based economy to a primarily human knowledge-based economy, with economic value increasingly created primarily by human intelligence. As the century progressed, another paradigm shift was already underway: value creation through artificial intelligence, AI. Early AI programs were capable of outperforming human beings in certain discrete tasks. Almost immediately after the invention of the programmable computer, AI could show superhuman performance on a highly formalized problem like finding the fastest path through a network of roads. It took longer for AI to reach superiority for problems requiring more creativity. In 1996, IBM's Deep Blue AI program beat Garry Kasparov, the then world champion in chess. These programs, while useful, were essentially one-trick ponies. Their intelligence was not general. Deep Blue had massive arrays of processors that could only play chess. Algorithms for pathfinding could solve a maze or route a car, but they could not paint a painting. 16. Starting in the late 2000s and early 2010s, an older algorithm called deep learning became practical to implement on low-cost hardware for the first time. This caused an almost overnight revolution in performance across nearly all AI projects. New top-of-class algorithms were developed for turning speech into text, translating between languages, and recognizing what kind of food is shown in a photo. One of the hallmarks of deep learning is that algorithms do not need to be designed with significant knowledge of the task at hand. They learn each task from training examples, essentially programming themselves. This means that they are far more general purpose than earlier systems like Deep Blue. 17. As deep learning algorithms became increasingly sophisticated, some of the world's leading AI researchers set their sights on what has come to be called artificial general intelligence, AGI. The basic concept of AGI is a general purpose artificial intelligence system, a machine having intelligence for a wide variety of tasks, like a human. 18. Mr. Musk has long recognized that AGI poses a grave threat to humanity, perhaps the greatest existential threat we face today. His concerns mirrored those raised before him by luminaries like Stephen Hawking and Sun Microsystems founder Bill Joy. Our entire economy is based around the fact that human beings work together and come up with the best solutions to a hard task. If a machine can solve nearly any task better than we can, that machine becomes more economically useful than we are. As Mr. Joy warned, with strong AGI, the future doesn't need us. Mr. Musk publicly called for a variety of measures to address the dangers of AGI, from voluntary moratoria to regulation, but his calls largely fell on deaf ears. 19. But where some, like Mr. Musk, see an existential threat in AGI, others, See AGI as a source of profit and power. 20. In 2014, Google acquired DeepMind, a research group focused on deep learning. One of DeepMind's initial developments was AlphaZero, a chess-playing algorithm. Unlike previous algorithms, however, AlphaZero used reinforcement learning, wherein the program learns to play chess by playing itself with different versions of the software. It starts by playing randomly with no understanding of the game's strategy. When one version of the software wins a game against another, the winning program's internal pathways are reinforced and the process repeats. 21. AlphaZero rapidly became the strongest chess-playing system in the world. Shockingly, it was also announced that the same program was also the strongest in the world for playing two other extremely difficult games. In Google/DeepMind's words, quote, starting from random play and given no domain knowledge except the game rules, AlphaZero achieved within 24 hours a superhuman level of play in the games of chess and shogi, Japanese chess, as well as Go, and convincingly defeated a world champion program in each case. End quote. 22. With the DeepMind team, Google immediately catapulted to the front of the race for AGI. Mr. Musk was deeply troubled by this development. He believed, and still does, that in the hands of a closed, for-profit company like Google, AGI poses a particularly acute and noxious danger to humanity. In 2014, it was already difficult enough to compete with Google in its core businesses. Google had collected a uniquely large set of data from our searches, our emails, and nearly every book in our libraries. Nevertheless, up to this point, everyone had the potential to compete with Google through superior human intelligence and hard work. AGI would make competition nearly impossible. B, the founding agreement of OpenAI Inc. 23. Mr. Altman purported to share Mr. Musk's concerns over the threat posed by AGI. In 2015, Mr. Altman wrote that the, quote, development of superhuman machine intelligence, SMI, is probably the greatest threat to the continued existence of humanity. There are other threats that I think are more certain to happen, but are unlikely to destroy every human in the universe in the way that SMI could. End quote. Later that same year, Mr. Altman approached Mr. Musk with a proposal that they join forces to form a nonprofit AI lab that would try to catch up to Google in the race for AGI, but it would be the opposite of Google. 24. Together with Mr. Brockman, the three agreed that this new lab, A, would be a nonprofit developing AGI for the benefit of humanity, not for a for-profit company seeking to maximize shareholder profits, and B, would be open source, balancing only countervailing safety considerations that would not keep its technology closed and secret for proprietary commercial reasons. The founding agreement. Reflecting the founding agreement, Mr. Musk named this new AI lab OpenAI, which would compete with and serve as a vital counterbalance to Google DeepMind in the race for AGI, but would do so to benefit humanity, not the shareholders of a private for-profit company, much less one of the largest technology companies in the world. 25. The founding agreement was also memorialized, among other places, in OpenAI Inc.'s December 8, 2015 Certificate of Incorporation, which affirmed that its, quote, resulting technology will benefit the public and the corporation will seek to open source technology for the public benefit when applicable. The corporation is not organized for the private gain of any person, end quote. X1, Exhibit 1 at 1. The Certificate of Incorporation further affirmed that all of the corporation's property was, quote, irrevocably dedicated to these agreed purposes. 26. In reliance on the founding agreement, which Mr. Altman, Mr. Brockman, and OpenAI Inc. reaffirmed with Mr. Musk on multiple occasions, Mr. Musk was a moving force behind the creation of OpenAI Inc., contributing a majority of its funding in its first several years, advising on research directions, and most importantly, recruiting some of the world's leading scientists and engineers to work at the nonprofit venture, including Chief Scientist Ilya Sutskever. Recruiting for OpenAI Inc. was a Herculean task. In the face of relentless recruiting efforts by Google DeepMind, coupled with the lavish compensation Google DeepMind offered, there would have been no OpenAI Inc. without Mr. Musk's founding contributions and early leadership. Mr. Musk continued to make contributions to OpenAI Inc. from its founding through September 14th, 2020. 27. OpenAI's initial research was performed in the open, providing free and public access to designs, models, and code. When OpenAI Inc. researchers discovered that an algorithm called transformers, initially invented by Google, could perform many natural language tasks without any explicit training, entire communities sprung up to enhance and extend the models released by OpenAI Inc. These communities spread to open source grassroots efforts and commercial entities alike. 28. Mr. Altman became OpenAI Inc.'s CEO in 2019. On September 22nd, 2020, OpenAI entered into an agreement with Microsoft, exclusively licensing to Microsoft its generative pre-trained transformer, GPT-3, language model. However, OpenAI published a detailed paper describing the internals and training data for GPT-3, enabling the community to create similar models themselves. And most critically, the Microsoft license only applied to OpenAI's pre-AGI technology. Microsoft obtained no rights to AGI, and it was up to OpenAI Inc.'s nonprofit board, not Microsoft, to determine when OpenAI attained artificial general intelligence. C. The 2023 breach of the founding agreement. 29. In 2023, defendants Mr. Altman, Mr. Brockman, and OpenAI set the founding agreement aflame. 30. In March 2023, OpenAI released its most powerful language model yet, GPT-4. GPT-4 is not just capable of reasoning, it is better at reasoning than average humans. It scored in the 90th percentile on the uniform bar exam for lawyers. It scored in the 99th percentile on the GRE verbal assessment. It even scored a 77% on the advanced sommelier examination. At this time, Mr. Altman caused OpenAI to radically depart from its original mission and historical practice of making its technology and knowledge available to the public. GPT-4's internal design was kept and remains a complete secret, except to OpenAI and, on information and belief, Microsoft. There are no scientific publications describing the design of GPT-4. Instead, there are just press releases bragging about performance. On information and belief, this secrecy is primarily driven by commercial considerations, not safety. Although developed by OpenAI using contributions from plaintiff and others that were intended to benefit the public, GPT-4 is now a de facto Microsoft proprietary algorithm, which it has integrated into its Office software suite. 31. Furthermore, on information and belief, GPT-4 is an AGI algorithm and hence expressly outside the scope of Microsoft's September 2020 exclusive license with OpenAI. In this regard, Microsoft's own researchers have publicly stated that, quote, given the breadth and depth of GPT-4's capabilities, we believe that it could reasonably be viewed as an early yet still incomplete version of an artificial general intelligence system. End quote. Moreover, on information and belief, OpenAI is currently developing a model known as Q-Star that has an even stronger claim to AGI. As noted, Microsoft only has rights to certain of OpenAI's pre-AGI technology. For purposes of the Microsoft license, however, it is up to OpenAI Inc.'s board to determine whether OpenAI has attained AGI, and a board coup took place November 2023. On November 17th, 2023, OpenAI Inc.'s board fired Mr. Altman after losing, quote, confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI because he was not consistently candid with the board. In a series of stunning developments spanning the next several days, Mr. Altman and Mr. Brockman, in concert with Microsoft, exploited Microsoft's significant leverage over OpenAI Inc. and forced the resignation of a majority of OpenAI Inc.'s board members, including chief scientist Ilya Sutskever. Mr. Altman was reinstated as CEO of OpenAI Inc. on November 21st on information and belief. The new board members were handpicked by Mr. Altman and blessed by Microsoft. The new board members lack substantial AI experience and, on information and belief, are ill-equipped by design to make an independent determination of whether and when OpenAI has attained AGI, and hence when it has developed an algorithm that is outside the scope of Microsoft's license. 32. These events of 2023 constitute a flagrant breach of the founding agreement, which defendants have essentially turned on its head. To this day, OpenAI Inc.'s website continues to profess that its charter is to ensure that AGI, quote, benefits all of humanity. In reality, however, OpenAI Inc. has been transformed into a closed-source de facto subsidiary of the largest technology company in the world, Microsoft. Under its new board, it is not just developing, but is actually refining an AGI to maximize profits for Microsoft rather than for the benefit of humanity. Its technology, including GPT-4, is closed source, primarily to serve the proprietary commercial interests of Microsoft. Indeed, as the November 2023 drama was unfolding, Microsoft's CEO boasted that it would not matter, quote, if OpenAI disappeared tomorrow. He explained that we have all the IP rights and all the capability. We have the people, we have the compute, we have the data, we have everything. We are below them, above them, around them. 33. This case is filed to compel OpenAI to adhere to the founding agreement and return to its mission to develop AGI for the benefit of humanity, not to personally benefit the individual defendants and the largest technology company in the world. Detailed allegations. A. Mr. Musk's concerns over AGI falling into the wrong hands. 34. In 2012, Elon Musk met Demis Hassabis, the co-founder of DeepMind, a for-profit artificial intelligence company. On or about this time, Mr. Musk and Mr. Hassabis met at SpaceX's factory in Hawthorne, California, where Mr. Musk and Mr. Hassabis discussed the greatest threats facing society. During this conversation, Mr. Hassabis emphasized the potential dangers that the advancement of AI presents to society. 35. Following this conversation with Mr. Hassabis, Mr. Musk became increasingly concerned about the potential of AI to become superintelligent, surpass human intelligence, and threaten humanity. Indeed, Mr. Musk was not the only person afraid about the dangers of AI and the research being conducted at DeepMind. It has been reported that following a meeting with Mr. Hassabis and investors in DeepMind, one of the investors remarked that the best thing he could have done for the human race was to shoot Mr. Hassabis then and there. 36. Mr. Musk began discussing AI and DeepMind with those in his orbit, such as Larry Page, then CEO of Google's parent company, Alphabet Inc. Mr. Musk would frequently raise the dangers of AI in his conversations with Mr. Page, but to Mr. Musk's shock, Mr. Page was unconcerned. For example, in 2013, Mr. Musk had a passionate exchange with Mr. Page about the dangers of AI. He warned that unless safeguards were put in place, quote, artificial intelligence systems might replace humans, making our species irrelevant or even extinct. Mr. Page responded that would merely, quote, be the next stage of evolution, and claimed Mr. Musk was being a speciesist, that he favored the human species over intelligent machines. Mr. Musk responded, well, yes, I am pro-human. 37. At the end of 2013, Mr. Musk learned to his grave concern that Google was planning to acquire DeepMind. At the time, DeepMind was one of the most advanced AI companies in the industry. Thus, Mr. Musk was deeply concerned that DeepMind's AI technology would be in the hands of someone who viewed it and its power so cavalierly and could hide its design and capabilities behind closed doors. 38. In an effort to prevent this powerful technology from falling into Google's hands, Mr. Musk and Luke Nosek, a co-founder of PayPal, attempted to put together funding to buy DeepMind. This effort culminated in an hour-long call wherein Mr. Musk and Mr. Nosek made one last effort to convince Mr. Hassabis not to sell DeepMind to Google. Mr. Musk told Mr. Hassabis that, quote, "The future of AI should not be controlled by Larry Page." 39. Mr. Musk and Mr. Nosek's effort was unsuccessful. It was reported in January 2014 that DeepMind would be acquired by Google. However, this did not deter Mr. Musk from continuing to ensure that AI was developed and practiced safely. 40. Following Google's acquisition of DeepMind, Mr. Musk began, quote, "hosting his own series of dinner discussions on ways to counter Google and promote AI safety." Mr. Musk also reached out to President Barack Obama to discuss AI and AI safety. In 2015, Mr. Musk and President Obama had a meeting during which Mr. Musk explained the dangers of AI and advocated for regulation. Mr. Musk felt that President Obama understood the dangers of AI, but regulation never came. 41. Despite these setbacks, Mr. Musk continued to advocate for safe AI practices. In 2015, it appeared that Mr. Musk may have found someone who understood his concerns about AI and his desire to keep the first AGI out of the hands of a private company like Google. Defendant Sam Altman. 42. At this time, Mr. Altman was the president of Y Combinator, a startup accelerator in Silicon Valley. Before that, Mr. Altman had been involved in various startup ventures. 43. Mr. Altman appeared to share Mr. Musk's concerns surrounding AI. In public blog posts dating back to 2014, Mr. Altman stated that AGI, if made, would, quote, "be the biggest development in technology ever." Mr. Altman pointed out that there are many companies making strides towards achieving AGI, but acknowledged the unfortunate reality that the good ones are very secretive about it. 44. On February 25th, 2015, Mr. Altman also expressed his concern surrounding the development of what he referred to as superhuman machine intelligence, which he identified as, quote, "probably the greatest threat to the continued existence of humanity," and emphasized that, quote, "as a human programmed to survive and reproduce, I feel we should fight it," end quote. Further, Mr. Altman criticized those who believed that superhuman machine intelligence was dangerous, but dismissed it as never going to happen or definitely very far off. He accused them of engaging in sloppy, dangerous thinking. 45. Indeed, in early March 2015, Mr. Altman extolled the importance of government regulation as a means to ensure AI is created safely, and suggested that, quote, "a group of very smart people with a lot of resources, likely involving U.S. companies in some way, would be the most probable group to achieve superhuman machine intelligence first." 46. Later that month, Mr. Altman reached out to Mr. Musk to inquire whether he would be interested in drafting an open letter to the United States government regarding AI. The two began preparing a letter and approaching those of influence in the technology and AI sectors about signing. It did not take long before those across the industry heard rumors of the letter. 47. For example, in April of 2015, Mr. Hassabis reached out to Mr. Musk, stating that he had heard from multiple sources that Mr. Musk was drafting a letter addressed to the president calling for regulation of AI. Mr. Musk defended the idea of the regulation of AI to Mr. Hassabis, stating, quote, "if done well, it may very well accelerate AI in the long term without the public comfort that regulatory oversight provides. There could very well be a situation where an AI causes great harm and thereafter AI research is banned as dangerous to public safety," end quote. 48. 5 days after Mr. Hassabis reached out to Mr. Musk about the open letter regarding AI, Mr. Hassabis announced the first meeting of the Google DeepMind AI Ethics Board, a board that Google and DeepMind promised to establish 2 years earlier when Google acquired DeepMind. Mr. Musk was asked to be a member of the board and offered for the first meeting to be hosted at SpaceX in Hawthorne, California. It became clear to Mr. Musk after the first meeting that this board was not a serious endeavor, but was rather a facade to try and slow down any regulation of AI. 49. The open letter was later published on October 28, 2015, and signed by over 11,000 individuals, including Mr. Musk, Stephen Hawking, and Steve Wozniak. B. OpenAI Inc.'s founding agreement. 50. On May 25th, 2015, Mr. Altman emailed Mr. Musk, writing that he had been, quote, been thinking a lot about whether it's possible to stop humanity from developing AI. I think the answer is almost definitely not. If it's going to happen, it seems like it would be good for someone other than Google to do it first, end quote. Mr. Altman had an idea that Y Combinator start a Manhattan Project for AI. Unfortunately, it turns out that the Manhattan Project is a moniker that may be all too apt. He proposed that, quote, we should structure it so that the tech belongs to the world via some sort of nonprofit, but the people working on it get startup-like compensation if it works. Obviously, we'd comply with / aggressively support all regulation. Mr. Musk responded, probably worth a conversation. 51. After further communications, Mr. Altman emailed Mr. Musk on June 24th, 2015, with a detailed proposal for this new AI lab. Quote, the mission would be to create the first general AI and use it for individual empowerment, i.e., the distributed version of the future that seems the safest. More generally, safety should be a first-class requirement. The technology would be owned by the foundation and used for the good of the world. He proposed that they start with a group of 7 to 10 people and expand from there. He also proposed a governance structure. Mr. Musk responded, agree on all. Exhibit 2 at 1. 52. Soon thereafter, Mr. Altman began recruiting others to help with the development of the project. Notably, Mr. Altman approached Gregory Brockman to help with the project. 53. In November 2015, Mr. Altman put Mr. Brockman in communication with Mr. Musk via email. Regarding the project, Mr. Brockman told Mr. Musk, quote, I hope for us to enter the field as a neutral group looking to collaborate widely and shift the dialogue towards being about humanity winning rather than any particular group or company. I think that's the best way to bootstrap ourselves into being a leading research institution, end quote. Optimistic about the possibility of a neutral AI research group focused on humanity rather than profit for any individual or group, Mr. Musk told Mr. Brockman that he would commit funding. 54. Mr. Musk came up with the name of the new lab, a name reflecting the founding agreement, OpenAI Institute, or simply OpenAI. 55. With these principles of the founding agreement in mind, Mr. Musk joined forces with Mr. Altman and Mr. Brockman to formalize and launch the project. Mr. Musk was actively involved in the project even prior to it being publicly announced. For example, Mr. Musk advised Mr. Brockman on compensation packages for employees, sharing with Mr. Brockman his strategies for compensation and retraining and retaining talent. 56. On December 8th, 2015, a certificate of incorporation for OpenAI Inc. was filed with the Delaware Secretary of State. The certificate memorialized in writing the founding agreement. Third, this corporation shall be a nonprofit corporation organized exclusively for charitable and or educational purposes within the meaning of Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended, or the corresponding provision of any future United States Internal Revenue law. The specific purpose of this corporation is to provide funding for research, development, and distribution of technology related to artificial intelligence. The resulting technology will benefit the public, and the corporation will seek to open source technology for the public benefit when applicable. The corporation is not organized for the private gain of any person. Fifth, the property of this corporation is irrevocably dedicated to the purposes in Article 3 hereof, and no part of the net income or assets of this corporation shall ever inure to the benefit of any director, officer, or member thereof, or to the benefit of any private person. Upon the dissolution or winding up of this corporation, its assets remaining after payment or provision of payment of all debts and liabilities of this corporation shall be distributed to a nonprofit fund, foundation, or corporation which is organized and operated exclusively for charitable, educational, and or religious purposes, and which has established its tax-exempt status under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3 or the corresponding section of any future federal tax code, or shall be distributed to the federal government or to a state or local government for a public purpose. 57. OpenAI Inc. was publicly announced on December 11th, 2015. In the announcement, Mr. Musk and Mr. Altman were named as co-chairs, and Mr. Brockman was named as the CTO. The announcement emphasized that OpenAI was designed to benefit humanity and its research would be free from financial obligation. OpenAI is a nonprofit artificial intelligence research company. Our goal is to advance digital intelligence in the way that is most likely to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return. Since our research is free from financial obligations, we can better focus on a positive human impact. Exhibit 3 at 1. C. Mr. Musk's crucial role in getting OpenAI Inc. off the ground. 58. In an email on the day of the public announcement, Mr. Musk wrote that, quote, "Our most important consideration is recruitment of the best people." He pledged that helping with the recruiting effort was his absolute top priority 24/7. He acknowledged that, quote, "We are outmanned and outgunned by a ridiculous margin by organizations you know well, but we have right on our side, and that counts for a lot. I like the odds." Mr. Musk brought to bear his connections, stature, and clout in the effort. The fact that OpenAI Inc. was an Elon Musk-sponsored initiative and that Mr. Musk served as co-chair was instrumental to OpenAI Inc.'s recruiting efforts, particularly in the face of Google DeepMind's counter-recruiting. Without Mr. Musk's involvement and substantial supporting efforts and resources, his consideration for the founding agreement, it is likely, highly likely, that OpenAI Inc. would never have gotten off the ground. 59. One of the most important initial hires was for the role of chief scientist. Mr. Altman, Mr. Brockman, and Mr. Musk all wanted Ilya Sutskever, then a research scientist at Google, in that role. Dr. Sutskever went back and forth on whether to leave Google and join the project, but it was ultimately a call from Mr. Musk on the day OpenAI Inc. was publicly announced that convinced Dr. Sutskever to commit to joining the project as OpenAI Inc.'s chief scientist. 60. Mr. Musk actively recruited for OpenAI Inc. over the next several months. Google DeepMind made increasingly lavish counter-offers to OpenAI Inc. recruits in an attempt to kill the new venture. In late February, Mr. Musk emailed Mr. Brockman and Mr. Altman, reiterating that, quote, "We need to do what it takes to get the top talent. Let's go higher. If at some point we need to revisit what existing people are getting paid, that's fine. Either we get the best people in the world or we will get whipped by DeepMind. Whatever it takes to bring on ace talent is fine by me. DeepMind is causing me extreme mental stress. If they win, it will be really bad news with their one mind to rule the world philosophy. They are obviously making major progress, and well, they should, given the talent level over there." End quote. 61. Mr. Musk was not just using his connections and clout to recruit on behalf of OpenAI Inc. When he told Mr. Brockman and Mr. Altman to go higher in their efforts to, quote, "do what it takes to get the top talent," he was the one funding those higher efforts. In 2016 alone, Mr. Musk contributed over $15 million to OpenAI Inc., more than any other donor. The funding he provided enabled OpenAI Inc. to assemble a team of top talent. Similarly, in 2017, Mr. Musk contributed nearly $20 million to OpenAI Inc., again, more than any other donor. All told, Mr. Musk contributed more than $44 million to OpenAI Inc. between 2016 and September 2020. 62. In addition, through Musk Industries, LLC, Mr. Musk leased OpenAI Inc.'s initial office space in the Pioneer Building in San Francisco and paid the monthly rental expenses. Mr. Musk regularly visited OpenAI Inc. and was present for important company milestones, such as when the first DGX-1 AI supercomputer was donated to OpenAI Inc. in 2016. Mr. Musk would receive updates on OpenAI Inc.'s progress and would provide his feedback and advice. D. Mr. Altman and Mr. Brockman repeatedly reaffirm the founding agreement. 63. In 2017, Mr. Brockman and others suggested transforming OpenAI Inc. from a nonprofit to a for-profit corporation. After a series of communications over several weeks, Mr. Musk told Mr. Brockman, Dr. Sutskever, and Mr. Altman, quote, "either go do something on your own, or continue with OpenAI as a nonprofit. I will no longer fund OpenAI until you have made a firm commitment to stay, or I'm just being a fool who is essentially providing free funding to a startup. Discussions are over." End quote. 64. In response, Mr. Altman told Mr. Musk, quote, "I remain enthusiastic about the nonprofit structure." Ultimately, Mr. Brockman and Mr. Sutskever conveyed to Mr. Musk that they too were resolved to continuing the nonprofit structure and that they would spend the next year committed to fundraising to support the nonprofit. 65. On February 21st, 2018, Mr. Musk stepped down as a co-chair of OpenAI Inc. Nevertheless, Mr. Musk continued making contributions to OpenAI Inc., relying on and in furtherance of the founding agreement. For example, in 2018, Mr. Musk donated approximately $3.5 million to OpenAI Inc. He also continued receiving updates about OpenAI Inc. from Mr. Brockman, Dr. Sutskever, and Mr. Altman. 66. In April 2018, Mr. Altman sent Mr. Musk a draft OpenAI charter and solicited his feedback. The draft charter described OpenAI's mission as to ensure that AGI benefits all of humanity. It stated, quote, "We commit to use any influence we obtain over AGI's deployment to ensure it is used for the benefit of all and to avoid enabling uses of AI or AGI that harm humanity or unduly concentrate power. Our primary fiduciary duty is to humanity. We anticipate needing to marshal substantial resources to fulfill our mission, but will always assiduously act to minimize conflicts of interest that could compromise broad benefit." End quote. 67. On March 11th, 2019, OpenAI Inc. announced that it would be creating a for-profit subsidiary, OpenAI LP. Prospective investors were notified of an important warning at the top of the summary term sheet that the for-profit entity, quote, "exists to advance OpenAI Inc.'s, the nonprofit's mission of ensuring that safe artificial general intelligence is developed and benefits all of humanity. The general partner's duty to this mission and the principles advanced in the OpenAI Inc. charter take precedence over any obligation to generate profit." End quote. Accordingly, investors were expressly advised that, quote, "it would be wise to view any investment in OpenAI LP in the spirit of a donation." 68. Following the announcement, Mr. Musk reached out to Mr. Altman, asking him to, quote, "be explicit that I have no financial interest in the for-profit arm of OpenAI," end quote. However, Mr. Musk continued to support OpenAI Inc., the nonprofit, donating an additional $3.48 million in 2019. 69. On September 22nd, 2020, OpenAI announced that it exclusively licensed certain of its pre-AGI technology to Microsoft. Consistent with the founding agreement, OpenAI's website states that AGI, which it describes as, quote, "a highly autonomous system that outperforms humans at most economically valuable work," is excluded from IP licenses and other commercial terms with Microsoft, which only apply to pre-AGI technology, end quote. However, OpenAI's board determines when we've attained AGI. E. OpenAI's shifting corporate structure. 70. In the years following the announcement of the OpenAI LP, OpenAI's corporate structure became increasingly complex. OpenAI LLC was formed in Delaware on September 17, 2020. OpenAI LLC's sole member is OpenAI OpCo LLC. 71. OpenAI OpCo LLC was formed in Delaware on September 19, 2018, and its sole member is OpenAI Global LLC. 72. OpenAI Global LLC was formed in Delaware on December 28, 2022. On information and belief, OpenAI Global LLC, like OpenAI LC, is a capped for-profit entity. OpenAI Global LLC has two members, Microsoft Corporation and OAI Corporation LLC. 73. OAI Corporation LLC is a limited liability company formed in Delaware. The sole member of OAI Corporation LLC is OpenAI Holdings LLC. 74. OpenAI Holdings LLC was formed in Delaware on March 17, 2023, and has 15 multiple members, including OpenAI Inc., Estes LLC, and various individual members. 75. On information and belief, OpenAI Inc. manages OpenAI LP and OpenAI Global LLC through its general partner OpenAI GP LLC, which was registered as a limited liability company in Delaware on September 19, 2018. OpenAI GP LLC is wholly owned by OpenAI Inc., the nonprofit, and is controlled by the nonprofit board of directors. Under OpenAI's charter, the board has no fiduciary duties to shareholders. Rather, its sole fiduciary duty is to humanity. 76. On information and belief, at least OpenAI LP and OpenAI GP LLC were initially established to facilitate and fund OpenAI Inc.'s nonprofit mission as set forth in the founding agreement. F. The development of OpenAI's technology from AI to AGI. 77. Initial work at OpenAI followed much in the footsteps of DeepMind. OpenAI used reinforcement learning to play a game. Instead of playing chess, however, OpenAI competed in Dota 2, a strategy video game with far more moving pieces than chess. OpenAI's team quickly constructed a new model that beat the reigning world champion team, demonstrating that self-play reinforcement learning can achieve superhuman performance on a difficult task. 78. Meanwhile, at Google, an algorithm called the Transformer was created that solved many of the issues deep learning had faced in understanding long sequences of text. This algorithm, an example of a large language model, was developed to translate text from one language to another and works by forming connections between words in the source language and mapping those connections to the target language. 79. Researchers at OpenAI continued this research and quickly produced yet another startling result. By using the first half of Google's Transformer architecture, a deep neural network could be pre-trained on a large corpus of text and used to generate new text. In January 2018, OpenAI released the source code and trained model for this generative pre-trained transformer, GPT, along with a detailed paper describing the model and its capabilities. 80. In 2019, OpenAI released a second generation model, GPT-2. The release was again accompanied by a detailed paper describing the model and noting that unlike previous models, which needed to be trained on a specific task, quote, when a large language model is trained on a sufficiently large and diverse data set, it is able to perform well across many domains and data sets. These models were proving themselves to be very different from previous AI systems. Instead of training the system to perform a particular task, they could simply be asked to perform a new task in natural language. 81. As contemplated by the founding agreement, OpenAI publicly released the full version of GPT-2. Notably, it did so despite the fact that, quote, humans find GPT-2 outputs convincing, that GPT-2 can be fine-tuned for misuse, and that detection of GPT-generated text is challenging. At the time, OpenAI stated that it was releasing the full open version with the hope that it, quote, will be useful to developers of future powerful models, end quote. This release was accompanied by a detailed paper co-authored by OpenAI scientists as well as independent social and technical scientists. This paper explained just some of the many benefits that came from releasing models publicly as opposed to keeping them closed. 82. Their publication did prove useful to the developers of future powerful models. Entire communities sprung up to enhance and extend the models released by OpenAI. These communities spread to open source grassroots efforts and commercial entities alike. 83. In 2020, OpenAI announced a third version of its model, GPT-3. It used, quote, 175 billion parameters, 10 times more than any previous non-sparse language model, end quote. Again, OpenAI announced the development of this model with the publication of a research paper describing its complete implementation for others to build on. 84. In 2022, researchers at Google took these results and showed that a small change called chain of thought prompting could enable large language models to perform complex reasoning. Researchers at the University of Tokyo and Google quickly expanded on Google's results and showed that OpenAI's GPT-3 could reason about an entirely new problem in a step-by-step manner, like a human, by simply adding, "Let's think step by step," before each answer. 85. Path to artificial general intelligence could be seen, and the timeline to it was compressing dramatically. 86. On March 14th, 2023, OpenAI released a new generation of its model, GPT-4. This generation was not merely capable of reasoning, but was better at reasoning than average humans. GPT-4 scored in the 90th percentile on the Uniform Bar exam. It scored in the 99th percentile on the GRE verbal assessment. It even scored a 77% on the Advanced Sommelier examination. By OpenAI's own objective measures, GPT-4 is already capable of intelligence that is superior to humans on a wide variety of economically valuable tasks. 87. This development was not lost on the research community. In a detailed analysis titled "Sparks of Artificial General Intelligence: Early Experiments with GPT-4, Microsoft researchers note that, quote, GPT-4 can solve novel and difficult tasks that span mathematics, coding, vision, medicine, law, psychology, and more without needing any special prompting. Moreover, in all of these tasks, GPT-4's performance is strikingly close to human-level performance and often vastly surpasses prior models such as GPT 3.5-based ChatGPT, end quote. 88. They compared the performance of GPT-4 with the performance of GPT-3-based systems and found that, quote, there is no comparison with the outputs from GPT-4. On mathematical problems, they showed that, quote, the solution given by GPT-4 is correct and the argument sound, while ChatGPT based on ChatGPT-3 produces an incorrect solution, which in the case of a human would reflect a lack of understanding of the concept of function inversion, end quote. On another example, they show that, quote, GPT-4 gives a correct solution, while ChatGPT begins by rearranging the terms without any clear direction or purpose and ends up with an incorrect solution, end quote. 89. Microsoft's own scientists acknowledge that GPT-4, quote, attains a form of general intelligence, and that given the breadth and depth of GPT-4's capabilities, we believe that it could reasonably be viewed as an early, yet still incomplete, version of an artificial general intelligence system, end quote. G. The founding agreement is breached in 2023. 90. Having reached the threshold of AGI, which, under the founding agreement, they were to develop for the benefit of humanity rather than for any for-profit company or personal profit. Defendants instead radically departed from their mission in breach of the founding agreement. GPT-4 is an entirely closed model. The internal design of GPT-4 remains a secret and no code has been released. OpenAI has not published a paper describing any aspect of its internal design. It has simply issued press releases boasting about its performance. The internal details of GPT-4 are known only to OpenAI and, on information and belief, to Microsoft. GPT-4 is hence the opposite of OpenAI, and it is closed for proprietary commercial reasons. Microsoft stands to make a fortune selling GPT-4 to the public, which would not be possible if OpenAI, as it is required to do, makes the technology freely available to the public. Contrary to the founding agreement, defendants have chosen to use GPT-4 not for the benefit of humanity, but as proprietary technology to maximize profits for literally the largest company in the world. Further, OpenAI's entire development is now veiled in secrecy, and the public only has rumors and isolated fragments of communications to understand what may be released next. 91. Researchers have pointed out that one of the remaining limitations of GPT architecture-based AIs is that they generate their output a piece at a time and cannot backtrack. These issues have been seen before in artificial intelligence research and have been largely solved for other applications. In path and maze finding, AI must be able to find the right path despite the existence of dead ends along the way. The standard algorithm to perform this is A star. It's called A star. 92. Reuters has reported that OpenAI is developing a secretive algorithm called Q-star. While it is not clear what Q-star is, Reuters has reported that several OpenAI staff members wrote a letter warning about the potential power of Q-star. It appears Q-star may now or in the future be part of an even clearer and more striking example of artificial general intelligence that has been developed by OpenAI. As an AGI, it would be explicitly outside the scope of OpenAI's license with Microsoft and must be made available for the benefit of the public at large. 93. For the purposes of the license with Microsoft, OpenAI Inc.'s board determines whether OpenAI has determined AGI, and in a series of shocking developments described in more detail below, a majority of OpenAI Inc.'s board was forced to resign on November 22nd, 2023, and their replacements were on information and belief handpicked by Mr. Altman and Microsoft. 94. On November 17, 2023, OpenAI Inc.'s board dismissed Mr. Altman. OpenAI announced in a blog post that Mr. Altman had been fired, and his, quote, departure follows a deliberative review process by the board, which concluded that he was not consistently candid in his communications with the board, hindering its ability to exercise its responsibilities. The board no longer has confidence in his ability to continue leading OpenAI, end quote. 95. Mr. Brockman was also removed from the board, but was told he would retain his role at OpenAI. 96. At the time, the board consisted of Helen Toner, Adam D'Angelo, Tasha McCauley, Dr. Sutskever, Mr. Brockman, and Mr. Altman. In addition to serving on the board, Ms. Toner is a researcher and advisor for the Center for the Governance of AI, GovAI, and the Director of Strategy for Georgetown Center of Security and Emerging Technology. Ms. McCauley is a senior management scientist at RAND Corporation, a nonprofit which specializes in public policy decision-making. She is also an advisor for GovAI. Mr. D'Angelo, the only board member to remain after Mr. Altman's reinstatement, is a tech CEO and entrepreneur. 97. The choice to include on OpenAI Inc.'s board multiple academics and public policy experts with deep AI policy experience, most of whom had no financial stake in the company, was deliberate. This composition of financially disinterested board members with strong records of public service ensured that the board would put the nonprofit's principal beneficiary, humanity, before financial success. This safeguard was put in place for the board in furtherance of OpenAI Inc.'s nonprofit mission and the founding agreement to safely create AGI, which would benefit humanity, not the pecuniary interests of a for-profit company. 98. On information and belief, Mr. Altman's firing was due in part to OpenAI's breakthrough in realizing AGI. In fact, news reports suggested that there was a rift among OpenAI board members and executives regarding safety concerns and the potential threat posed by OpenAI's next generation Q-star. 99. News of Mr. Altman's ouster spread rapidly. Following the board's announcement that Mr. Altman was fired, Mr. Brockman announced he would be leaving OpenAI with Mr. Altman. 100. When Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella learned of Mr. Altman's firing, he was reportedly furious. As a 49% shareholder in OpenAI's for-profit arm, Mr. Nadella felt that Microsoft should have been consulted before Mr. Altman's firing. However, at this time, outside of Mr. Altman, OpenAI Inc.'s board had no ties to Microsoft and no fiduciary duty to investors in the for-profit arm. Rather, on information and belief, Mr. Altman was the primary liaison between Microsoft and OpenAI Inc. 101. Mr. Nadella invited Mr. Altman and Mr. Brockman to lead a new Microsoft AI research lab unbound by the constraints of OpenAI Inc.'s humanitarian mission. Nadella made it clear that employees who left OpenAI would be welcome at Microsoft's new lab with the same salary. 102. Microsoft was confident that through its substantial ownership in OpenAI's for-profit arm, it could completely sequester OpenAI Inc.'s research should the company cease to exist. Indeed, during an interview shortly after Mr. Altman's firing, Mr. Nadella stated, quote, "We were very confident in our own ability. We have all the IP rights and all the capability. If OpenAI disappeared tomorrow, I don't want any customer of ours to be worried about it, quite honestly, because we have all of the rights to continue innovation, not just to serve the project, but we can go and just do what we were doing in partnership ourselves. We have the people, we have the compute, we have the data, we have everything." 103. Despite Microsoft's statements regarding their capability to function without OpenAI, Microsoft never abandoned its plan to secure the reinstatement of Mr. Altman as OpenAI Inc.'s CEO. In the days following Mr. Altman's firing, OpenAI Inc.'s board was faced with mounting pressure from lawyers and major shareholders, including Microsoft, to reinstate Mr. Altman. 104. Ms. Toner was specifically targeted in efforts to reinstate Mr. Altman. During these efforts, a lawyer for OpenAI told Ms. Toner that she and the board could face claims for breach of their fiduciary duties to investors should OpenAI fail due to Mr. Altman's firing. 105. However, the OpenAI Inc. board has never had a fiduciary duty to investors. In fact, all investors in the for-profit arm are told that the company's duty to its mission takes precedence over its duty to its investors, and OpenAI Inc.'s website clearly indicates it only holds a fiduciary duty to humanity. 106. Ms. Toner, who described the lawyer's actions as an intimidation tactic, opined that Mr. Altman's continued removal would in fact advance the company's mission by promoting the safety of humanity over profit. However, none of this dissuaded the shareholders and Mr. Altman from pushing for his reinstatement. 107. Further, Microsoft had substantial coercive power over OpenAI Inc. and its board. During the period of Mr. Altman's firing, CEO Nadella said the following of Microsoft's relationship with OpenAI. "We are in there. We are below them, above them, around them. We do the kernel optimizations. We build tools. We build the infrastructure. So that's why I think a lot of the industrial analysts are saying, oh, wow, it's really a joint project between Microsoft and OpenAI. The reality is we are, as I said, very self-sufficient in all of this." 108. Moreover, at the time of the firing, Microsoft had only paid a fraction of the $10 billion investment commitment it had made to OpenAI, giving Microsoft serious leverage over the quote-unquote independent nonprofit board. Additionally, if Microsoft withheld its cloud computing system on which OpenAI was reliant, the company would be incapacitated. 109. The pressure on the board from Mr. Altman and Microsoft continued until November 21st, when Mr. Altman was reinstated as the CEO of OpenAI Inc. and Mr. Brockman rejoined as president. One of Mr. Altman's conditions upon return was that Ms. Toner, Ms. McCauley, and Dr. Sutskever resign from the board. 110. On information and belief, following his return, Mr. Altman handpicked a new board that lacks similar technical expertise or any substantial background in AI governance, which the previous board had by design. Mr. D'Angelo, a tech CEO and entrepreneur, was the only member of the previous board to remain after Mr. Altman's return. The new board consisted of members with more experience in profit-centric enterprises of politics than in AI ethics and governance. They were also reportedly big fans of Altman. Two of the new board members were Brett Taylor and Larry Summers. Mr. Taylor is no stranger to Silicon Valley and has been heavily involved in various Bay Area profit-driven ventures. On February 14, 2024, Mr. Taylor and ex-Google executive Clay Bever launched a startup focused on building AI chatbots for businesses. Dr. Summers is an economist who, on information and belief, had no experience working in artificial intelligence-based ventures prior to November 2023. Microsoft also obtained an observer seat on the board from which it could keep a close eye on its ostensibly non-profit Golden Goose. 111. With the reinstatement of Mr. Altman and the restructuring of the board, OpenAI's corporate structure that had been designed as a system of checks and balances between the nonprofit arm, the for-profit arm, the board, and the CEO to ensure the nonprofit mission was being carried out collapsed overnight. OpenAI Inc.'s once carefully crafted nonprofit structure was replaced by a purely profit-driven CEO and a board with inferior technical expertise in AGI and AI public policy. The board now has an observer seat reserved solely for Microsoft. With this restructuring, OpenAI Inc. abandoned its nonprofit mission of developing AGI for the benefit of humanity broadly, thereby keeping it out of the hands of a large for-profit corporation in which vast power would be unduly concentrated. 112. The OpenAI Inc. board's technical expertise in AI neutrality and commitment to OpenAI Inc.'s nonprofit mission are particularly essential to OpenAI Inc.'s mission, as it is the board that determines whether OpenAI has attained AGI for purposes of its license agreement with Microsoft. This means that the board is tasked with determining whether OpenAI's most powerful and advanced technology is actually excluded from the scope of Microsoft's exclusive license. Given Microsoft's enormous financial interest in keeping the gate closed to the public, OpenAI Inc.'s new captured, conflicted, and compliant board will have every reason to delay ever making a finding that OpenAI has attained AGI. To the contrary, OpenAI's attainment of AGI, like tomorrow in Annie, will always be a day away, ensuring that Microsoft will be licensed to OpenAI's latest technology and the public will be shut out, precisely the opposite of the founding agreement. 113. OpenAI's conduct could have seismic implications for Silicon Valley and, if allowed to stand, could represent a paradigm shift for technology startups. It is important to reflect on what has transpired here. A nonprofit startup has collected tens of millions of dollars in contributions for the express purpose of developing AGI technology for public benefit, and shortly before achieving the very milestone that the company was created to achieve, the company has become a closed, for-profit partner of the world's largest corporation, thereby personally enriching the defendants. If this business model were valid, it would radically redefine how venture capitalism is practiced in California and beyond. Rather than start out as a for-profit entity from the outset, smart investors would establish nonprofits, use pre-tax donations to fund research and development, and then once their technology had been developed and proven, would slide the resulting IP assets into a new for-profit venture to enrich themselves and their profit-maximizing corporate partners. That is not supposed to be how the law works in California or anywhere else in this country, and this should not be the first court to hold otherwise. 114. To further understand why this is important, if OpenAI's new business model is valid, for every dollar that an investor invests by contributing to a nonprofit, that investor gets approximately 50 cents back from the state and federal governments in the form of reduced income taxes. So the net cost to them of each $1 of investment is only 50 cents. However, with OpenAI's new business model, they get the same for-profit upside as those who invest in the conventional way, in for-profit corporations, and thus do not get an immediate tax write-off financed by the government and ultimately the public. From an investment perspective, competing against an entity employing the new OpenAI business model would be like playing a game of basketball where the other team's baskets are worth twice as many points. If this court validates OpenAI's conduct here, any startup seeking to remain competitive in Silicon Valley would essentially be required to follow this OpenAI playbook, which would become standard operating procedure for startups to the detriment of legitimate nonprofits, the government's tax coffers, and ultimately the people of California and beyond. Notably, OpenAI's for-profit arm was recently valued at nearly $80 billion. H. November 2023 to present. Altman's OpenAI. 115. The public is still in the dark regarding what exactly the board's deliberative review process revealed that resulted in the initial firing of Mr. Altman. However, one thing is clear to Mr. Musk and the public at large. OpenAI has abandoned its irrevocable nonprofit mission in the pursuit of profit. Numerous leaders and intellectuals have publicly commented on the irony and tragedy of OpenAI becoming closed for-profit AI. 116. For example, on November 29, 2023, MIT economists wrote an opinion in the LA Times expressing concern with OpenAI's new profit-driven directive. In their words, quote, disruption and uncontrolled growth have become religion for the tech industry, and Altman has been one of its most dedicated high priests, end quote. The economists emphasized that the new board is far more likely to allow Mr. Altman to scale up OpenAI as quickly as possible, no matter the severity of the societal costs. 117. The president of Public Citizen, a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization, wrote an open letter to California Attorney General Rob Bonta earlier this year, raising concerns about whether OpenAI's for-profit subsidiary is exerting inappropriate control over the nonprofit or whether the nonprofit's purpose has shifted to profit-making under Mr. Altman and Microsoft. The letter suggested that should the nonprofit abandon its original mission, it should be dissolved, with proceeds going to another charitable enterprise. 118. A Wired investigation from January 2024 found that OpenAI has also recently shuttered the public's access to previously available key documents. In line with OpenAI's original promise of transparency, OpenAI's IRS documents have indicated since its founding that any member of the public may view copies of its governing documents, financial statements, and conflict of interest rules. However, when Wired requested these documents, OpenAI indicated it had changed its policy. Thus, while OpenAI has long touted its commitment to transparency, members of the public are unable to obtain information, shedding light on the incidents of November 2023. 119. Access to OpenAI's documents could inform the public whether it has changed its governance to appease Microsoft and other shareholders. At the very least, changes had to be made to accommodate Microsoft's seat on the board, and now Mr. Altman is reportedly in discussions with Middle Eastern investors to raise up to $7 trillion in an effort to develop a global network of AI chip fabrication plants. If $10 billion from Microsoft was enough to get it a seat on the board, one can only imagine how much influence over OpenAI Inc. these new potential investments could confer on the investors. This is especially troubling when one potential donor is the national security advisor of the United Arab Emirates, and United States officials are concerned due to the United Arab Emirates' ties to China. Moreover, Mr. Altman has been quoted discussing the possibility of making the United Arab Emirates a regulatory sandbox where AI technologies are tested. 120. Further, access to OpenAI's conflict of interest policy is important to shed light on the board's ability to control Mr. Altman's use of OpenAI to advance his own economic interests, which so far appear to have gone unchecked. For example, in 2019, when Mr. Altman was CEO, OpenAI signed a letter of intent to buy $51 million worth of chips from a startup in which Mr. Altman was heavily invested. 121. While OpenAI Inc. was once a pioneer of safe, responsible development of AGI based on open communication with the public, it has now shut its doors, brought the biggest investor of its for-profit subsidiary onto a board which owes its only fiduciary duty to humanity and continues in secrecy towards a profit-centric future with possible calamitous implications for humanity. 122. Mr. Musk founded and funded OpenAI Inc. with Mr. Altman and Mr. Brockman in exchange for and relying on the founding agreement to ensure that AGI would benefit humanity, not for-profit corporations. As events turned out in 2023, his contributions to OpenAI Inc. have been twisted to benefit the defendants and the biggest company in the world. This was a stark betrayal of the founding agreement, turning that agreement on its head and perverting OpenAI Inc.'s mission. Imagine donating to a nonprofit whose asserted mission is to protect the Amazon rainforest, but then the nonprofit creates a for-profit Amazonian logging company that uses the fruits of the donations to clear the rainforest. That is the story of OpenAI Inc. That's part 2 from the brilliant Rootbitch. You can check her out right here at Reading Epic Threads. Please go to tulipblooms.shop. Use promo code Shapiro. Get your subscriptions, guys. Free shipping on absolutely everything. Use your drop down here. You go to Rainfall, guys. Rainfall on your face every single day, all over your body. You got the Rainfall 8 ounces. You got the Rainfall 2 ounce travelers you can take on the airplane. All sorts of great stuff. Vitamin C serum. Everything organic. Everything amazing. Just check it out, guys. Look at the reviews. 258 reviews. The average is like 4.9 or something. Check it out at tulipblooms.shop. Use promo code Shapiro for 10% off, an additional 5% off if you subscribe. And tulipblooms.shop customers are joining a very special exclusive club where you will be getting some offers that nobody else gets. So check it out, tulipblooms.shop. All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go complete my move, and then I'm going to collapse. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Let us pray. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow.